Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into something pretty big, a monumental shift happening right now within one of the world's most populous nations, India. And this isn't just, an economic blip. It feels much more fundamental. It's about how over 1 billion people get fed, or millions find work. And honestly, it touches on the future trajectory of our planet, too. So our deep dive today looks closely at India's agricultural sector. It's undergoing this really profound transformation. We're trying to track this change from, 2011-12 all the way up to now 2023-24. Our mission really is to understand how India is pivoting, moving from a farming system that was, traditionally all about stable crops towards something more diversified, high value, and interestingly, more animal-based. It's almost like watching a massive, complex ecosystem just rebalance itself in real time, and the ripples go way beyond India's borders.
It truly is a pivotal moment.
Yeah.
You really see this confluence of changing dynamics in India's economic history playing out. You've got evolving dietary preferences, a huge diverse population changing what they eat. You've got rising incomes fueling that change. And of course, deliberate policy interventions trying to steer things. And while, yes, there are incredible opportunities here, economic growth, more diverse food sources, absolutely. But there are also pretty significant challenges.
Challenges like?
Well, real environmental concerns, for one. The ecological footprint of more intensive farming, that's a big one.
Yeah.
And, the ongoing complexities of ensuring food security for such a massive nation. It's a deeply layered story. We need to unpack it carefully.
Okay, let's do that.
Yep.
Let's unpack what we're calling the Great Agricultural Pivot. Because for decades, you pictured Indian agriculture, you thought of vast fields of rice, maybe wheat. But our deep dive shows that picture is, it's rapidly changing, becoming almost a relic. There's this distinct rebalancing happening. The big trend, the one we're really seeing, is this clear decline in the dominance of traditional cereals. And at the same time, a significant, you could say, undeniable surge in livestock and fisheries.
Mm-hmm.
It feels foundational, like a shift in how the nation feeds itself and, crucially, how it creates wealth from its land, and now more than ever, its water.
You've absolutely hit the core of it. When we chart this from 2011-12 to 2023-24, it's clear this is way more than just a minor tweak. It's systemic. It affects, individual farmers making decisions every day, consumers finding new things on their plates, and the whole Indian economy. What's really striking, I think, is how this internal shift connects outwards to broader global economic trends, definitely, but maybe even more profoundly, to those changing diets within India as prosperity grows and lifestyles change.
Right. So if we zoom in a bit on that cereal story, how exactly are these staple grains rearranging themselves? Rice, wheat, maize, they're still critical, obviously.
Absolutely critical.
But their slices of the agricultural pie are, they're shifting. We saw paddy rice basically holding its ground, even nudging up its share a little, especially in those big rice states like Punjab, Andhra Pradesh.
Yeah, rice remains dominant.
But then wheat, that's interesting. A fundamental part of the diet, particularly up north, its share has actually dipped a bit, especially since, 2020, 21? And while that's happening, maize seems to be gaining ground, increasing its presence.
Yep, maize is on the rise.
And we've also seen this decline in what they call coarse cereals, things like jowar, bajra, those smaller millets. Traditional grains, often tougher, more drought-resistant. It sort of suggests a commercial focus shifting, maybe, towards the major, more widely traded crops. What's the real implication of these shifts, especially that little dip in wheat?
Well, the implication, particularly with wheat, is potentially quite significant. It's not just about changing crops. It could touch on India's basic food security. Wheat is such a primary staple. If that decline continues, it could mean higher prices, which, could push this essential food further out of reach for millions, especially the poor. Like you said before, the supermarket shelves rearranging. Rice is still king, definitely. But wheat's maybe losing a bit of prime space while maize is actively pushing in. And the coarse cereals, they're becoming almost niche items in comparison. But on the other hand, it's important to remember the productivity gains. They've been impressive. Rice yields, for example, they've soared. From just over 1,100 kilos per hectare back in the 70s to over 4,000 by 2019.
Wow.
And wheat saw similar big jumps.
Yeah.
So it isn't necessarily about less being produced per acre overall, but more like a strategic reallocation,
Yeah.
a shift in focus within the country's cropping patterns.
That's a really crucial distinction. Okay, so cereals are reshaping. What about another key part of the Indian diet, pulses? Those protein powerhouses. They've had their own dynamic journey, haven't they?
Oh, pulses have definitely had a varied ride, yeah.
Oh,
We've seen gram, that's chickpea, its share slipped a bit.
okay.
Arhar, or pigeon pea, that had a big moment around 2016-17, peaked then, but its share dropped back down by 2023-24.
Hmm.
But then moon, green gram, that gained share. Black gram stayed pretty stable. And masoor, lentil, saw a slight increase. Minor pulses, though. They're still very marginal.
So real mix there.
Exactly. And this reshuffle in the pulse aisle, it connects directly back to those changing dietary habits we talked about. As incomes go up, people are clearly reaching for more diverse protein sources, more meat, more dairy. And that naturally influences the demand for pulses.
Makes sense.
But despite these internal shifts, India's position globally is, well, it's unique. It's still the largest producer, the largest consumer, and the largest importer of pulses in the world. That's huge.
That's a massive role.
It is, and challenges remain, of course. Climate variability is a big one, especially for pulses grown in rain-fed areas. But there is a hopeful sign. Some projections suggest chickpea yields could actually increase significantly by 2100. That would be fantastic news.
Okay, good to hear some positive projections there. Now let's get to what seems like the most dramatic part of the story, the livestock sector. It's really emerged as the, well, undisputed fastest growing segment in Indian agriculture.
Absolutely.
It feels like the landscape is transforming, like farms are becoming these bustling hubs of animal production. What are the numbers telling us? How big is this surge?
The numbers are quite remarkable. Milk production, up by over 70% since 2011-12.
70%.
Egg production, an astonishing 84% increase. And meat production has more than doubled in that period.
Doubled. Wow.
And it's not just those main ones. While wool production actually went down, other things like, well, dung, silk, cocoons, even honey, they saw an impressive collective increase of over 84%.
That's quite a range. So what's driving this?
Well, the economics are compelling. Look at the gross value added, the GVA. From livestock, it grew at about 7.5% per year between 2014-15 and 2022-23.
Okay.
Compare that to crops. During the same time, they grew at only 2.8% per year.
Big difference.
Huge difference. And this growth, it's directly fueled by rising incomes, which leads to this massive increase in demand for animal products. Plus, there's another crucial factor, resilience.
Resilience.
Yeah, livestock often gives farmers a bit more stability against climate change compared to just relying on crops. Especially with unpredictable weather, it can provide a more reliable income stream.
That must be a lifeline for so many farmers. But growth this fast, this intensive, there have to be trade-offs, right? Are there big environmental worries or other challenges bubbling up?
That's the critical question, isn't it? While the growth brings positives, we absolutely have to look at the flip side. Intensive animal rearing. It raises significant environmental flags.
Like methane.
Methane emissions, exactly. Potent greenhouse gases. And potential water pollution from waste runoff. That's a serious concern. Disease spread is also a constant challenge when you have dense animal populations. Though it's worth mentioning a major success, eradicating rinderpest back in 2011. That definitely gave milk production a boost.
Okay.
So yes, this sector, while it's transforming livelihoods, needs really careful management to lessen its environmental impact. But on the social side, it's been a huge plus.
How so?
Job creation. Livestock farming is a massive source of jobs, especially for women and young people in rural areas. It offers different, often more consistent ways to earn a living than just relying on seasonal crops.
Right. Diversification of income. Okay, so beyond the land, India's pivot is also hitting the water in a big way. Fisheries. That seems like a real success story. Redefining what farming even means. What's the growth look like there?
Incredible is probably the word. Inland fishing, that's aquaculture, fish farming in ponds, rivers, it's up by almost 98%, nearly doubled.
Double.
And marine fishing, catches from the sea, that soared by a massive 176%.
Whoa. 176%.
Yeah, and economically. Fisheries GVA grew even faster than livestock. It had 8.9% per year between 2014-15 and 2022-23.
Faster than livestock. Wow. What's behind that acceleration?
It's a mix of things. Better technologies, definitely. The huge rise of aquaculture, basically,
Yeah.
fish farming in controlled environments, it's a game changer. And specific government pushes, like the Blue Revolution initiatives, these are offering really vital solutions, especially where land is scarce, providing alternative sources of income and, importantly, protein for a growing population.
That's an amazing surge. Truly shows India's adaptability.
Hmm.
But growth that explosive, especially in marine fishing, surely sustainability alarms are ringing loudly. Are we getting close to overfishing? Seeing other environmental costs?
You've absolutely hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
The growth is phenomenal, yes, but it forces us to ask, how do we make sure this lasts? Is it sustainable?
Right.
Because this kind of rapid expansion inevitably brings threats. We have to be vigilant about overfishing, depleting those natural stocks. And pollution from intensive aquaculture can seriously harm aquatic ecosystems. Plus, you layer climate change on top of that, changing ocean temperatures, habitat shifting.
Yeah.
It all requires really careful management, strong policies to ensure this vital sector is viable for the long haul.
Okay, so we've mapped out these pretty dramatic shifts, cereals rebalancing, livestock beaming, fisheries exploding, but what does it all actually mean? For you, the everyday person listening, and for the millions whose lives depend on agriculture in India, how does this pivot show up on their plates in their lives?
Well, for consumers, the most direct impact is probably a more diverse plate of food. That increased availability of milk, eggs, meat, fish, it translates directly into potentially better nutrition for a huge number of people. Just imagine the change in daily meals for millions of families moving towards more protein, which maybe wasn't as accessible before.
That's a significant shift in diet.
Definitely. And on the social front, this whole transformation acts as a powerful engine for rural jobs, especially, as we mentioned, for women and youth. Livestock and fisheries can offer steadier, more diversified incomes compared to the, sometimes precarious nature of traditional crop farming alone.
That sounds mostly positive. Better nutrition, more jobs. But we know these huge shifts always have shadows. What are the critical challenges, the maybe unintended consequences India's wrestling with?
Yeah, it's never purely one-sided. While there's clear progress, there are absolutely critical challenges. That decline in cereal production, especially wheat. As we said, it could lead to higher prices, hitting food security for the poorest. And it's interesting, kind of ironic, that even as animal product consumption rises, the actual consumption of pulses and cereals has apparently dipped by about 5%. Spending patterns are just shifting.
Interesting.
And we can't gloss over the darker side. Those environmental concerns from intensive livestock methane, water pollution, they are significant and growing. And tragically, this era of immense change has come at a profound human cost, too. The issue of farmer suicides. Over 11,000 recorded in 2022. It highlights the incredible pressures farmers face: market swings, debt, climate impacts. Navigating this transformation is incredibly tough for many.
That puts the progress in a much starker context.
It does, and it underscores why government initiatives are so vital. Things like Paramparagad Krishi Vikas Yojana, that's the main organic farming scheme, or Ini Chara, which focuses on building climate-resilient villages. These kinds of programs are crucial for trying to foster growth that's balanced, that considers both economic gains and social well-being.
That context is so important. And thinking about policy, this journey wouldn't make sense without looking at the policies shaping it and maybe what's next. The government has certainly been active.
Yes, there have been significant efforts.
We saw things like ENAM, launched back in 2016, trying to improve market access via digital platforms, and that ambitious target set in 2015 to double farmer incomes by 2022.
Right, though achieving that has proven complex.
Exactly. And the path hasn't been smooth. The whole controversy around the 2020 farm laws, ultimately repealed in 2021 after massive protests and tragically hundreds of deaths during those protests. It just really highlights how critical it is to have policies that are genuinely inclusive, that farmers feel are working for them, not against them.
Absolutely. It shows the immense challenge of policy implementation on this scale.
So where does that leave the future?
Well, that's where innovation and technology really have to kick in, I think. Look at AI-driven solutions in agriculture. They're projected to grow dramatically from maybe 1.7 billion USD in 2023 to nearly 4.7 billion by 2028.
That's fast growth. How does AI help?
It's about empowering farmers with data, real-time information on weather, soil conditions, pest prediction, helping them make much smarter, more efficient decisions. We're also seeing really interesting startups emerge.
Right.
Well, one example mentioned is Kandawala, focused specifically on tackling marketing issues, trying to connect farmers more directly to buyers, cutting out middlemen, improving their returns.
That could make a huge difference.
It could. And alongside tech, There's that steady, important growth in organic farming. Over 4 million hectares certified now. That's a clear pathway towards sustainability, aligning with environmental goals. Ultimately, looking ahead, the biggest challenge for India's agriculture is going to be exactly that, finding the right balance. Achieving growth, improving livelihoods, but doing it in a way that's fundamentally sustainable for the long term.
What a journey we've traced today. From those traditional fields of cereals quietly rearranging themselves to the booming sectors of livestock and fisheries. India's agricultural sector is really undergoing a profound shift. It's a compelling story, isn't it? Remarkable adaptation, incredible innovation, but also immense resilience needed to face all these challenges. It's such a dynamic landscape, constantly evolving, feeding over 1 billion people. It's clearly not static. It's a living, breathing, incredibly complex system.
It absolutely is. So maybe the next time you sit down for a meal, just take a moment. Think about that global interconnectedness, the incredible journey that food on your plate took to get there. And maybe wonder what other shifts, subtle or profound, are happening in food systems around the world that we haven't quite grasped yet. Think about how these huge changes in agriculture in one massive country like India, well, how they resonate globally, affecting prices, trade, even our collective efforts on climate change. It's a powerful reminder, isn't it, of just how intertwined our world really is.